Welcome to another informational video on HamSphere 4.0. Each of my videos will start with this same short section on what is HamSphere 4.0. Well, as a HamSphere 4.0 user and a licensed amateur radio operator, I look at it this way. HamSphere 4.0 is to ham radio what an advanced flight simulator is to flying. It's a simulation, but it's an incredibly realistic simulation. HamSphere 4.0 includes simulations of how the sunspots affect the ionosphere using current real sunspot numbers. It simulates the multiple paths that signals take through the atmosphere, getting from one location to another. And it even simulates the behavior of different types of antennas. You use all of these things in HamSphere 4.0 as you experienced an incredibly realistic simulation of ham radio. This video is about getting you started for the first time, getting you on the air with the default transceiver for HamSphere 4. There's a lot that we can cover, but I'm going to try to limit how much I do in each video. So you're sitting here at the login screen. You've entered your HamSphere, your normal HamSphere username or call sign and your password, and you click on login. HamSphere 4 does not require you to pay an additional subscription to your HamSphere 3 subscription. You get HamSphere 4 as part of it. Once you've downloaded it and installed it, then you've got everything you need to get on the air. You've got the default transceiver, which you get to by clicking transceiver. So again, you don't have to go to the shop or the editor. Let me turn this down. Alright, I have now launched HamSphere 4.0. You may not even hear any audio if the audio selector is not set correctly for your system. In my system, I use my USB headset for both my speaker and my microphone. So this is not the first time I've launched this. Otherwise, I would be on the default primary sound capture and primary sound driver. I've already set mine up. It's been a long time since you set yours up on 3.0, you may not even remember that you did that. But you do want to set these to the speaker and microphone that you normally use for HamSphere. A lot of people use a headset for better sound quality, so just set it right. Some of this other stuff will be familiar to you. The tuning knob is the same as 3.0. The ability to click on the band scope to tune is the same as 3.0. The frequency display, the S meter. This is no longer a chat box. It is a place where you do DX spots, which we'll talk about, and where you listen to or where you use DX monitors, which we will also talk about. Your band selection, that should be pretty familiar. HamSphere 4 has more bands. The HF bands are 160 meters to 10 meters. Then you have a 6 meter band, which is currently not being used. There will be propagation added for the 6 meter band at some point. And then you have two what are called repeater bands. If you read the download page and you read the manual, you know about these repeater bands. They're very important because they're a way for you to get help before you learn about propagation and the different HF bands and why you're not seeing any signals. So let me just first go to one of the repeater bands. First thing you'll notice is there's no static. That's because these repeater bands are simulating an FM band with a squelch, and you won't hear anything unless there's a signal there. But I just want to demonstrate real quickly. Here we go. Okay, that was a repeater on the 70 centimeter band identifying itself because someone probably keyed it up. There it goes, IDing itself. You'll notice here that it says repeater 434-100 is active because probably someone came up here and they were curious about the repeater and they keyed it up. You don't need to go through and make sure you can key up the repeater, because you can. But what you do need to know is what frequencies are the repeaters located on. So again, go to the manual, find the section on repeaters, VHF/UHF repeaters. So it says that on the 2 meter band there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 repeaters on these frequencies. On the 70 centimeter band there's 2 repeaters, the one we just heard at 434-100 and another one at 434-500. If you are stuck, you can't figure out how to do anything, go to one of the repeaters and key it up, or I'm sorry, just transmit like normal, and see if there's anyone around to help you. There's not always someone around, but it's a place to start. And if I had a question, I might say, is there anyone on? You know, I'm a new user, I need help. So that's the 2 meter and 70 centimeter repeater bands. Okay, so on those bands you don't have to worry about propagation. You don't have to worry about whether a band is good for long distance or short distance. You just go to the repeater frequencies as specified here, and you don't really have to worry about where the repeaters are. They're worldwide linked. You can get into any of them, and you can just set up a time with your friends to go there and talk and figure out your battle plan for experiencing the HF bands. Down on the HF bands, it's going to sound a little bit more like what you're used to from 3.0, and if there are people on the band, you will see signal spikes, some of them very, very small if they're a weak signal. The question is, how do you get started? You've got a default antenna. Notice there's no antenna selector on the default transceiver. Don't worry about it. When you're on the HF bands, you have an antenna. It's what's called the IDC Vertical, and it's a good all-purpose omnidirectional DX antenna. No, it's not going to be give you as powerful of a signal on transmit or receive as a big Yagi or quad rotatable antenna, but the IDC Vertical doesn't require a rotator. It works equally well 360 degrees around the compass, and it's got, if you know antennas at all, I'll just say this, it's got a good low angle of radiation, which means it's good for DX. Maybe not so good at talking to your next door neighbor, but good for DX, which is what a lot of people on HamSphere do. You've got this antenna, but how do you know if you're transmitting or not? Well, one thing that's going to happen is when you first start up HamSphere 4, your power is turned all the way down, your mic is turned all the way down. If you don't turn those up, then you're not going to get out to anyone. So turn your power up. It goes up to 100 watts if you turn it on full scale, and I would just say just start with 100 watts. Don't worry about running too much power at this point. Only if you're talking to someone where you're very, very strong to them and you know you don't need the power, then you can turn your power down. The microphone is just like 3.0. You set it such that when you're talking, you keep the needle on the ALC part of the meter in the green section. If it's not moving at all, then you don't have any microphone gain. So if I key up and I say, this is WB7ECW testing, notice the needle wasn't moving. No one's going to hear me, right? Even if I do have my power turned up. If I turn my mic gain up too far, then I'm going to overmodulate and they won't be able to understand me. This is WB7ECW testing. I went above the green, I went above this area of the meter. That's going to be overmodulated. So I know on my particular headset that this is about right. This is WB7ECW testing. So it's kind of hanging out in this range on the ALC meter. That's where you want to be, just like 3.0. You won't get kicked off for overmodulating like you do on 3.0, but nobody will be able to understand you if your needle is moving way up into this section. I should probably mention at this point these little buttons on the controls. These are new. That's because 4.0 has a lot more customization than 3.0. So if I want to use my S meter as a power meter, in other words, to show how much how much I've got my power turned up to, notice right here it says PWR, and it says 0, 10, 50, 100. So now when I key up here, do you see the needle went right here to 100? That's because I have my power turned up all the way. Now if I do that, that means I can't see the needle moving for my mic level. So if you're using the default transceiver with the default S meter and you don't have two of them, or you're not using S meter plus, which will be discussed in another video, then I would recommend only using the P mode to check your power, and then using the S mode when you're transmitting, so that you can keep an eye on your mic level. So now we've got your power turned up, we've got your mic level set, you can hear the static. Let's just keep going on the theory that you're not seeing any signal spikes, so you don't know what to do to find someone, to talk to someone. You don't even know if this band is a good band at this time of day or night. Well, there's a couple of things that can help you. One is you go to the logbook button and it brings up something similar to 3.0, the cluster. The difference is on 4.0 you don't show up in the cluster automatically just because you transmitted. You'll notice I was transmitting earlier and my call, WB7ECW, is not in here. That's because that's not the way real radio works. There's nowhere in ham radio that someone who just keys their mic magically shows up on a list. The way people show up in this cluster is because someone spotted them. So the HamSphere 4.0 has the same feature. You can click this Send DX Spot button and you can enter the call sign of some station you hear and maybe information on their signal strength and where you're located, and then you can click Send and it'll put it into the cluster. So in this case you can see that this station, 14HS1, used that feature to spot this station, 1HS6262, on this frequency, 14.260. And that's how things get in the cluster. So if you're just on and you're trying to find somebody, you could go to this and then click on these frequencies to find them. Now, I just want to warn you, 14 is France here. So, and 1HS is Italy. Okay? So right now, this time of day, France and Italy have a path to each other on 20 meters. But I don't. I'm on the west coast of the United States. I'm not part of their propagation right now. So that's why I don't hear them. It's not that I have a bad antenna. It's not that my radio's not working. It's that the cluster's going to show you things that are happening all over the world. Looking to find a spotter that's somewhere in your part of the world, that can help you with trying to find signals as long as it's a relatively recent spot. It's a weird time of night where I live. How do I know that any of this is working if I haven't found anything yet? There's a couple of ways. One is, let's see if we're even transmitting. There's a system called the DX monitor system. Again, go to your manual. There are DX monitors located around the world, and they are literally located around the virtual HamSphere 4 world in these locations: Eastern United States, Southern South America, Eastern Asia, Southern Africa, Western United States, Central Europe, and Eastern Australia. So it's not everywhere, but it's the key places to help test your propagation. And these are shown on a map on the download page. So that's why I say you want to keep the download page available. And here they are on the map: Western US, Eastern US, South America, Central Europe, South Africa, Eastern Asia, and Australia. So here's how that system works. If I have this DXMON, if I click on this DXMON on, well, it's set off, I click on that, it'll say DXMON active. Okay, now if I wasn't experienced in ham radio, or if I didn't know how realistic 4.0 was, I wouldn't know if I can get anywhere on the 20-meter band on my IDC Vertical at this time of night. Well, let's find out. I've got my power turned to 100 watts. I'm going to click my push to talk button. I'm going to, yeah, let me just, there, let me turn off the lock. Look at this. Look at this. Finally some proof that we're alive. We see two signal reports here. AUE, which is Eastern Australia, and SAS, which is Southern South America. Both saw my signal. And one of them, the Eastern Australia, gave me an S5 signal report. That means that if I was talking to someone in Eastern Australia, I have a pretty good chance of having an S5 signal to them. And the Southern South America one saw me with an S3, which is here. Those are both pretty good signal reports. The minimum is an S1 that you'll ever see. The maximum is an S9. So if you're really, really strong at one of these monitors, it'll still say S9, even though if there was someone there actually listening to you, they might give you a signal report of S9 plus, you know, something. So this is great news. This means that we are getting out. And if I had the patience and the belief, I could start calling CQ on this frequency right now, and I would know that if there's any users that happen to come by the 20-meter band and see my signal spike, or if there's any users in South America or Australia, at least that doesn't mean that I wouldn't also be heard by someone in the middle of the United States. There's no monitor there, so I don't know. Someone in Canada might hear me. Someone in New Zealand, even though there's no monitor in New Zealand, might hear me. Someone in Hawaii might hear me. You never know. This just gives you a little bit of an indication that yes, there are places in the world that can hear you right now on this band at this time. As you gain experience, you'll learn more about how the different bands work, and as you use VOACAP, you'll learn more. And so you can just go around to the different bands, and you know, different times of day are going to give you different results. Don't just think that a band's always going to be the same. 10 meters is an interesting band. It's not in very often, but when it is, it can be a great local and DX band. I think probably if I key right now, you'll notice none of the monitors saw me. 10 meters is worth a check now and then just to see if it's in. There is one other way to figure out where you're hearing in the world, and that is to look for beacons. If you look at the download page, the HamSphere 4.0 download page, you'll find information on the let me find it here, on these beacons. It shows where they're located in the world, and these are transmitters, some of them pretty low power, many of them just Morse code transmitters, some of them are like shortwave stations, and sometimes you can hear those beacons If one's right next to you, of course, you probably hear it all the time. But I know, for instance, that there's this beacon on 14.210 megahertz on the 20 meter band from Japan. I'm located here on the west coast of the US. The Japan beacon is here, so we're just across the Pacific Ocean from each other. And for instance, if I go to that frequency that said 14.210 and I tune into it, if you listen very, very carefully, you can hear some Morse code in there. So it's so weak right now that there's not even a signal spike, but it's there. So that indicates that I am able to hear Japan on this band at this time. So I'm going to go to the 40 meter band right in the middle. I'm going to leave the monitor on here while I key up. It says very slightly into Eastern Asia, a little bit into the east coast of the US, and really strong on the west coast. Now, problem is that there's probably no one awake in the east coast or the west coast of the US, but I'm going to try it anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the monitor, because otherwise every time I key up I'll get this same signal report, and I'm going to start calling CQ. So before you call CQ on HamSphere 4, you have to check and see if the frequency's in use. That may seem a little silly coming from 3.0, where you can tell whether or not it's in use by just listening or looking for the signal spike. But on 4.0, you may only be able to hear half of a conversation. And if the half that you can't hear is currently transmitting, and you just start transmitting right over the top of them, then the other station that's in that QSO is going to get interfered with by you, and you're going to come in on top of the station they're listening to. So, first thing you do is this frequency in use? Is this frequency in use? I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to start calling CQ. Hello CQ, CQ, CQ. CQ 40 meters. This is Whiskey Bravo 7, Echo Charlie Whiskey. WB7ECW calling CQ. Hello CQ, CQ, CQ. This is Whiskey Bravo 7, Echo Charlie Whiskey. WB7ECW, State of Washington, West Coast of the United States, calling CQ and listening. Now, if I wasn't doing a demo video and I really wanted to make a contact, I would be persistent in calling CQ. It's hard to overstate the importance of calling CQ on HamSphere 4.0. If we have all the users just tuning around looking for signals and nobody's transmitting, then that's going to make it really hard for people to find activity. But if you've used VOACAP, you've convinced yourself the band is in, you've used the DX monitors, everything indicates to you that there's propagation on that band, then start calling CQ and be persistent with it. I will call CQ for no less than 2 minutes, usually at least 5 minutes, and sometimes 10 minutes or more, because I've lost count of the number of times that I've gone to a band that has no signal spikes, has no spots, but I know that band is in, and I go there and I call CQ, and sometimes it's 5 minutes later before someone tunes to that band looking for spikes and sees me. So if everybody that was looking for activity was finding an open frequency and calling CQ, then we'd see a lot more spikes. Of course, somebody has to be left to tune around and look for those spikes, but you get the idea. In this video, I showed you the default transceiver using the default antenna, and I showed you a lot of the controls and the tools and some of the procedures you'll need to start making your own contacts. This video was recorded in the middle of the night where I am. Propagation was pretty much local to North America and to vast unoccupied stretches of the Pacific Ocean, and that was done on purpose. I didn't want to tune in and find a bunch of signals and just make it look like all you have to do is click on signal spikes. You need to learn the tools to get contacts when it's not so easy. And in future videos, we'll go over VOACAP, propagation prediction. That's a really key thing that we've avoided covering in any detail so far. And we'll look more at other tools that you can use, and will, believe me, make a lot more contacts in future videos. For now, I'm just going to leave you with some samples of things that I have copied on HamSphere 4. Everything from two friends on one of the 2-meter repeaters discussing their attack on the HF bands, to some music stations on the broadcast band or the BC band on your band selector there, to just some stations, some fellow hams talking on some of the HF bands. So 73s, enjoy HamSphere 4.0, and more videos are coming.
Succeeds to make contact with Europe, countries from Europe, like England, Netherlands, Germany, all over Europe I succeed. Okay, Ski, would you like to test the 15 meter, because it's now good propagation in my side. Over.
Here's a station which I think is on the east coast of the United States, but it's very, very strong. It's running a lot of power, I think. I'm pretty sure this is a beacon from Costa Rica, so clearly 15 meters has propagation to Central America. Don't need to look at VOACAP or anything to know that. Let's go to 20 meters using the default antenna. You notice no antenna selector. You can hear something weak there. Let's go to the cluster on 14.230, which is where we are, I believe. Yes. There is a station in Brazil. So I'm just going to call CQ a little bit. Is this frequency in use? So just in case there's somebody on frequency that I can't hear. Is this frequency in use? And again, while I'm talking, watch my ALC meter. My needle needs to stay in the green. If it gets above that, I need to turn my mic level down. Hello CQ, 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 CQ 20 meters. This is Whiskey Bravo 7, Echo Charlie Whiskey. WB7ECW calling CQ. Hello CQ, CQ, CQ. This is Whiskey Bravo 7, Echo Charlie Whiskey. WB7ECW, State of Washington, West Coast of the United States, calling CQ and listening.
KC0ZDU.
Yeah, Roger. Thank you very much.